There's a lot of articles out there and even some YouTube videos which make out that Formula E was the first all-electric single-seater championship in the world. But the fact is that that's simply not true. Before Formula E, there were a number of interesting attempts at getting a proper electric racing championship up and running, and some actually did get up and running. In this video, I'm going to take a very quick look at a few of them, and I think actually each of these series and the cars used in them, or not used as the case may be in some points, could be worth a video in themselves, and we will have to get back to all of that. The series that really gave me the idea for this very little video came from a car I saw on display at a trade show many years ago. It was very clearly a Panoz DP01 Champ car, but it had some new branding on it, Green Prix USA. I took this very poor quality picture of the logo to remind me to look into it, and nothing ever came of it. However, I recently found the video you see here of one of the cars for sale a few years ago at a showroom in Atlanta, Georgia. The car was oddly missing its floor. Looking into it, Green Prix was an absolutely wild idea. Following the demise of the Champ Car World Series, a lot of the relatively new Panoz DP01 chassis were left completely redundant. They weren't used in IndyCar. And there were a number of Renault and Lola chassis as well from the previous generation of Champ Car sat around not doing very much either. Seeing an opportunity, an American businessman by the name of Ben Johnston acquired a number of the Panoz chassis as well as some of the Reynards as well. Apparently no Lolas, I've no idea why not. He had a bold but not completely defined plan to launch a new racing championship to fill the void left by Champ Car, and it would be called Green Prix. And the concept was to recycle the old Champ cars and race them in a new series, the aim of which was to, and I quote, provide a platform for all green initiatives involved in automotive performance. Wide and vague right there. The medium-term plan for the series was to convert all of the cars to run on electric power, and the series website, what website there was of it, promised state-of-the-art electric motors to be fitted to all of the cars. But motive power was a bit of a problem for the series overall. The promised EV powertrain never actually materialised. In fact, I'm not even convinced it was ever even designed. Because of the lack of batteries, motors, inverters, wires, and indeed anything related to an EV powertrain, the series was due to start using conventional combustion powertrains. After all, there should be loads of those knocking around because Champ Car didn't exist anymore. There was a problem there though as well. Green Prix didn't actually have any of the Champ Car engines. It just had the rolling chassis. After the demise of Champ Car, all of the engines returned to Cosworth. Apparently Johnston and Green Prix had acquired 23 Champ Car rolling chassis and absolutely nothing to power them. Short of bolting in a bunch of off-the-shelf V8 engines in the back of the car, which surely would be a silly idea on a modern single-seater racing car, and never mind, we'll get back to that. Ultimately, Green Prix, a championship designed to be all about powertrains, had no power at all. The series was due to start in 2009, but the date of the first race passed without any events taking place, or any tests, or even any running cars, and the concept was largely forgotten. Largely forgotten except by my good friend Marshall Pruitt, who couldn't help but wonder where all of these cars have gone, and 5 years later they actually all showed up. A bunch of Reynard and Panoz rolling chassis were to be sold off in a divorce settlement in the USA. A large number of them were listed for sale by a classic car showroom based in Atlanta, seen here. Some of the cars were part built, others complete, aside from any kind of powertrain obviously, but they were complete with a Green Prix livery. Today, the former, or never quite, Green Prix cars are all now with fresh owners, and none of them have electric powertrains. But the idea was ultimately quite sound, a single-seater championship on all-electric power, and the Green Prix idea of acquiring existing cars and converting them to EV power is a really good one. But to do that, you do sort of need the actual EV power bit to make it all work. Anyway, searching my archives, I also turned up this interesting concept from Renault. It's Formula Elektrocampus concept. Long before Formula E turned up in Monaco, Renault demonstrated its electric single-seater concept there with no less than Jean Ragnotti at the wheel. Alain Prost was also pictured sat in the car as well, though I'm not sure he ever actually drove it. It was 1993 and the new car was designed to possibly be the basis of Formula Renault going forward, but in reality I think it was more of a technology demonstrator. The car had a standard tubular steel chassis taken from the basic Formula Campus series car of the time, as you can see here in this lovely cutaway drawing. I do love a good cutaway. Housed in the side pods of the car though, it all gets a bit more interesting. There were 3 large batteries on either side of the cockpit. These batteries were nothing particularly special. Indeed, they were conventional lead acid 12-volt packs, exactly as you would find underneath the bonnet of a small Renault Clio. These batteries powered a 50 kilowatt electric motor driving the rear wheels via a manual transmission. According to Renault's press releases at the time, the car had a top speed of 170 kph and a 0 to 100 kph time of a whopping 11 seconds. It's not exactly a racy car. If driven at 40 kph, the car had a 250 kilometre range, though what the point of that would be is never entirely made clear. The reason for the rather leisurely performance of this car was its sheer weight. Those lead acid batteries were just too heavy. It did though prove to be a good learning exercise for Renault and the other companies involved: Siemens, ABB, Renault itself, and of course Michelin, all brands that played a key role in establishing Formula E many years later. Interestingly, the Elektrocampus series did propose to use portable charging units, something Formula E later adopted. Exactly what happened to the 1 or possibly 2 Elektrocampus prototype cars is not entirely clear, but it's likely that they were later converted back into conventional Formula Campus cars, or they're now lost in storage somewhere at a Renault facility in France. Sticking with French things, I can hear that some of you may be shouting at the screen about the spiritual successor to this car. Of course, Formula E was based on an electric single-seater championship which never actually started, Formula Electric, or Formulec for short. The first car was built and actually demonstrated extensively before that championship eventually morphed into the Formula E Season 1 with an all-new car, but that very first car had actually been designed, in part at least, by Braun Grand Prix. There's a video on its development on the link above. Actually, that series was destined to be quite different to Formula E in that it was meant to be a multi-chassis championship, not a spec racing series. In fact, Formula E as a whole was meant to be multi-chassis initially when it was first proposed, a carryover from those old Formula Electric days. And some of those initial design proposals were really quite wild. The link above covers some of those. Crossing the channel to the UK, another car which got built and announced as having its own series as well as competing in other series but never really getting anywhere was the Westfield iRacer. Based on what modern eyes might see as a rather crude chassis concept, this new design had a design weight of 600 kilograms and was powered by a 60 kilowatt motor. It was meant to compete either in its own series or a new series called the EV Cup, but neither of those championships ever happened. The car featured a split battery pack with half of the lithium iron phosphate batteries under the floor of the car, and the aerodynamics of the car looked both striking and a little bit crude, but they do give the car a very different futuristic look compared to the normal Lotus 7 based Westfield models. You might argue that this car isn't really a single seater, but I thought I would include it anyway because it only had one seat, but also when you look at its design, it isn't actually wildly different in looks, at least the aesthetics of it, to the most recent Formula E car with that very angular styling. Right, stop shouting at the back. I haven't forgotten what I think is truly the first all-electric single-seater championship, Formula Lightning. This series was frankly amazing and way ahead of its time, and I don't think it's well enough known. It was launched in 1994 and ran for a decade. While every team did use the same chassis, there was quite a bit of technical freedom in terms of the powertrains of the cars, and many teams opted for different battery chemistries. Races will run on both road courses and ovals, and they would last between 15 and 30 minutes, with many races lasting a bit too long for the cars to complete on a single charge. So rather than having recharging pit stops, the cars would actually have to come into the pits and swap out all of their batteries, which was quite a spectacle. This championship was frankly really quite fascinating, and we will absolutely be getting back to it soon, and actually all of these topics as well. I hope you've enjoyed this very lightweight battery powered trip through some electrifying bits of motor racing history, and if you have, don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you soon somewhere in the pit lane, at least once I've finished hauling that lead acid battery into the side pod and the old one out.